All right, morning, everybody. Glad y'all are here. Good to see you. And it begins, right? Obviously a lot of hard work's going into this year. And I always just think back to, from the last bowl game to now, what happens. And, I think, of course, the standard talk for us will be what happened, from the return, bringing it back, and all the great things that group did. To what is this group going to do with losing 35 seniors. So I think in January we started a mindset of we want to keep this thing going. From January forward, the work ethic from this group has been tremendous. Great off season, and I've talked to you about those things. Really good volunteer May, and we had about 90% of the team stay. June and July was terrific. I think we had 4 guys late. Over the whole course of 2 months, out of 110 guys or whatever that was. So a really good commitment from this group. And then we've really had a good camp. Obviously losing Bronte Harris was a blow. That guy's hard to replace. So happened early in camp, tough. Look forward to getting him back next year. But for the most part, we've stayed pretty injury free. Just like everybody, you get your nicks and bruises and groins and hamstrings and those things. I think we've done a good job keeping those guys well. From our strength staff, training staff, coaches, handled the heat well. Obviously, it's great to have that pavilion to be able to go under when we need to. And here we are in game week. So, the things I will say about Alabama State, once again, from having coached at Prattville, being around those guys, having opened up with them my first game at Jack State. You've got, once again, you're in the state of Alabama where football is important. You're in Montgomery, which is the heart of our state, so they've got a great recruiting area, a really good school. Not many people know what my wife is. Got her master's in education. She was an RN, got her master's in education from Alabama State. So she's got to pull for us, though, this week. But, just being around that program, knowing what they've done with their facilities. They've got the, pretty new stadium that's really nice to recruit to. They will have some really good players, well coached. This is going to be obviously anytime it's the opener game, it's going to be a huge game for them. And I have not looked at their updated depth chart. We just got that, but I think they had 10 offensive starters returning, 7 on defense, and we're replacing 35. So we'll see what happens there. But we're going to expect a great game from them. They're going to be ready to play, and we need to do the same. So, questions?
As the last 2 years were, how much is this year sort of an indication of where you are as a program when you are replacing that many guys and sort of is this a chance to really show where you are as a program?
We hope so. We hope so. And I think for all of us, I am a no excuses. Let's get the job done. And we still go back to getting picked 130 out of 130. Good news there, we had nowhere to go but up. But I do think. I don't want to put so much pressure on this group from that standpoint, yet we put pressure on them anyway, and it's no excuses, doesn't matter, we don't care. So, it was unprecedented. It never happened, and we had to bring all these older guys in to have a chance. We knew this was coming. We tried to mitigate it with backfilling it with high school guys, and we knew we would have some attrition. We did bring in some junior college guys to give us some older guys that would be ready to play. I think we handled it the best we could and the best we, I don't know of any other way to do it. Of course, when you're in it, that's what you're trying to do. But I think it will be an indication of how well we handled that situation. And I feel pretty good, but at the same time, we're sitting here talking to our seniors and, we got these guys back. There's not many of them just due to that, which is going to be great for the future. But at that time right now, we're not waiting until next year. We're going to be ready. We want to be ready now, and we don't want to drop off. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I like this group. We'll see how that translates to the field, though.
On that same thread, looking at the a lot of true freshmen on that. How much of that goes in for just evaluation of recruiting, and along with the mix of these junior college guys, and also in the last couple of years, use the red shirt too. These younger guys have been able to step up and kind of fill in those spots.
Yeah, I think I had somebody at practice the other day. It was somebody with the press, in fact, and he said, Coach, I've come to see you a lot. I've not been here this year. he said this team, top to bottom, just looks different. And, you know, one of the things we've noticed out of this freshman group, they were really, and this is from our strength coach, you know, he said, I think they're twice as strong as the last group we brought in. So that's what we're trying to do in recruiting. You know, you always want to out-recruit the last group. No offense to them, you know, we're just hoping that success and facilities and what's happening in Birmingham, the stadium, all those things leads to even better recruits, which allows some of those guys are just going to be that much more ready to play early. So, you know, I tell every player that comes in, you've got a chance to play early, and if it fits you to red shirt, then that's what we'll do. But we don't just throw red shirts out there if you can play. And every once in a while I'll have a kid that asks for a red shirt. Usually it's just, okay, what's best for the team and for me, and that's what we always try and do. So it's a good class. We've got some of those guys involved.
Bill, you touched on it a little bit. You did it 2 years ago with Alabama A&M. What, if you could expand a little bit on, what do you like about playing in-state schools that are not in your conference?
Yeah, I think there's two things to that. Number one, there's more pressure. I don't think there's any way around it that it is a little more pressure to be playing somebody right at your next door, and it's important. But that's the whole point of what it does for crowds and games, and they're going to bring a great crowd. I mean, their band, the experience. I mean, this is, I wouldn't say it's a true home game, but it's a little bit of a home game. I mean, they play here every year, so that's not going to be Legion Field's not going to be new to them. I mean, they're right down the road, which, you know, and that's what we want. We want this great experience for our fans. That's also a great experience for our players. You know, we set the stadium record 2 years ago with Alabama A&M, and I think a Thursday night, 7 o'clock, they bring a good crowd. We we have a great crowd. You know, I'd love to see if we could break that record again. You know, I know we've got a lot of great things going on at the game, but that's what you get out of playing in-state schools, and and we got another one coming up a few weeks later. So I think it's going to be a good thing, no doubt.
Is this year's defense faster than last year, you think? I mean, as a whole, I know you have.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. They're very quick. I think once again, and I think we talked about this the other day. What is that standard across the board, specific to that defense? And I mean that's going to be an incredibly high standard we set last year, but that's where we're trying to go. Defensively, it helps when you can run. I mean, it's just the nature of the game that is so horizontal now. Besides it being vertical, besides they can run the ball right at you, it's also, you've got to be able to get out on all the balls that are outside and in the perimeter, and speed sweeps and quick screens and pass rush. And so that's one of the things we might be a little bit better at. I don't know about the other things, but that's something we may have a little more team speed over there.
You had T.D. Marshall come over the defense after Bronte's injury, and he's worked himself out of that rotation. Does that speak more for just what he can do himself as well as the depth at receiver that y'all have created?
We did. I mean, that was a move that I remember John Neal, who was with us. He said, Coach, I may not say one thing, but I'm going to say T.D. Marshall needs to go to defense. And it was a guy, the length, the speed. I mean, he looks like an NFL corner. And we felt like we got some good guys over there behind Bronte. I was honestly thinking about doing it in the spring. We started working him over there. If you remember in the spring, he would get some work just on body type. And we felt like we had some depth at receiver. But thank God I worked that in the spring. We worked it some in the summer, and then when we need to do it, then it was a no-brainer. And, of course, he knew he just wants to help the team and be put in the best spot he can. But, I mean, this guy is a true team guy. Just, Coach, what do I need to do? What can I do to help the team? I'm willing to do whatever. I mean, and you don't always hear that. So, proud of him. He's really made tremendous strides. Coach Mitchell's done a great job with him. And, that group now, I think we've got some depth there as well, which you need. So, and the receiver core has got some depth, so we could do it.
Bill, is this a little bit similar to 2017 in that you've got a lot of guys who haven't been under the lights?
Yep.
And are you anxious to see just how they're going to step up, how they're going to react maybe when things go wrong?
Yeah, I think that's a great comparison. I think we try and put them in every bit of the fire. Remember I said that after that. I guess it was especially after that second week, and I said, these guys have never been in a college football game. I mean, and so you had some junior college guys, which is, not much far out of high school. I mean, just in the atmosphere. I mean, you know, it's talent, but there's probably a couple hundred people in the stands. So that atmosphere changes, and just everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to win. Everybody puts resources in it, and some more than others, but they do want to win. And so I think that we're going to see what happens. And people ask me, I said, hey, we'll just have to see. Let's see how they handle it. And we talk about adversity all the time. What are you going to do when adversity hits? How do we handle that? And so we'll see. We'll see what they do.
With moving this to the edge now, as here in the depth chart, how much, what does he bring to that position, and how much did I guess the camp that Noah Wilder have also kind of allow you to sort of move guys around and do that?
That was something we talked about. We had used Fitz in kind of in a pass rush role. We play a lot of guys on that at that outside linebacker spot. Same thing we're trying to do with the D line. That amount of effort that has to be given up front, with, like I talk about what goes on with what offenses do to defenses now, is one of the reasons we want to really keep those guys as fresh as we can, and where they're giving all out maximal effort. If you look at us last year, we were playing 5 and 6 guys the whole year. So that was something we talked about with Fitz. He wanted to do it early on. He wanted to get over there and rush the passer some, and I think it just worked out. I think our depth at inside linebacker, you talked about Noah, Kobe Griffin, Luke Brasher, that allowed us to make that move and also give us some age out there at that outside linebacker spot. So I think it's going to be a win all the way around.
So the guys you just mentioned, those are sort of guys that came from people looking for the outside, sort of came from nowhere. But I mean, did you see going into camp that those guys can play that type of role, the ones you mentioned, or is it?
I think Noah was a guy that's really kind of been a really great find. He was a guy that, when we start talking about the scouts, and I always talk to players about the scout team, and Coach Vincent would come in every day and just, he would talk about certain guys, and he said, man, that's Noah. And then we do a crossover where we get to see these guys. It's the very best defensive players we can put against the first string offense, and then vice versa, which is, one of the things that helps us get ready for games, and he showed up. And so that along with Luke playing last year, Kobe Griffin was a great move from safety. I think that whole group allowed us to make that move.
You haven't seen a fully healthy Spencer Brown in a game in a long time. How excited are you to see him?
Everybody should be excited about that. Everybody that likes us, and he's been fun to watch in the spring. I mean, in not the spring, but because we didn't play him in the spring, in camp, I should say. And I'm really excited about him, and I know he's ready to get more than 8 carries or whatever I've been giving him in these scrimmages. So, but he's had a really good camp. I'm really excited about the whole group of running backs. We've got depth there. They look the best. Getting Hayden back, Lucius, Larry Wooden, that whole group. We've got real depth. They've all worked on their hands all off season, pass protection, all those extra things. But Spencer's, I think he's ready to get to the first game as well.
You've got not just depth, but it appears you've got some real diversity in what those guys
Correct.
are there to do, what they all bring to the
Right.
table, maybe a little something different for each of them.
That's right. I think they've all, and Coach Brigham and I talk a lot about this, and Coach Vincent, they've all got something they do a little bit different, or maybe a little better than others. Some are, are truly complete, but and I think that's what you want. You want those different things, and I know defensively those things are hard to defend, especially as the ball is rolling, and here comes this guy. He's got a strength. This guy, it's hard to just peg him and go, this guy's in doing this, and we want them all to be able to do all the same things. So there's really not some tail or some giveaway.
Is Hayden a little bit different player than he was in 17 as far as physically?
Yeah, I don't even think it's comparable. He came in and got too big. And he wasn't fat, but he was just too big for his height. And we immediately recognized that. And so when he got injured, you really go into a true training mode. And this guy's a real football player. And now he looks like the guy we signed. This dynamic, explosive, great hands, kick returner, loves the game of football, great football bloodlines. He makes our team better. He makes that running back room better.
One of the things you got Starling, Miley, Damien kind of getting that return now.
Mm-hmm.
Just what can you tell us about that? How explosive it can be with as much, athleticism you got there, as well as the rest of the special teams who's got Nick back.
Yep.
Kyle back. So
Yeah, special teams is, I think lip service is we all say how important it is. Hopefully that's something I've always really tried to make a big deal in what we do. It starts with those specialists, and Nick, being with us all the way back to 14, and he'll be a captain for this game. He doesn't know that yet. That whole group back there will serve as captains. So they've just now heard that. But I think that our specialists are a solid group, and it starts with them. Having depth there and game experience is huge. So, we've lost a lot of other guys, but we do have our whole specialist group is back, and they've been in the war, so to speak. So that's a big deal. We've got more depth in special teams than we've ever had, I think. I think that's one of the things that's exciting, watching our kickoff team, our kickoff return. So depth in all those phases is going to be a big deal in how well our special teams play this year.
So many young guys going on the field for the first time. What's the pep talk to keep them from thinking too much in their own heads?
Mhm. Yep.
And if there's need for that.
I think that's the things we've been talking about all summer. What does it look like? We try and put them in game situations every day in practice. And we do have a lot of guys that were the next guy last year. Now, obviously those freshmen weren't, but they've kind of been the other guy. A lot of them are on special teams, so we feel like we've had them ready. Obviously, having a quarterback that's played in games really helps that offense. I think it's all about how you prepare them in practice. As much as we can do, and then once again back to Kevin's question. It's they need to get under the lights and experience it.
Really excited, after finishing up a really good camp. Just excited to go against a different opponent and just get a look at somebody else.
Last couple of years, you've played a lot in the middle, but now, you've gone to this, outside position, rushing the passer. How has that transition been? And, is this something, Coach talked about that, you've been wanting to do this, so, how excited are you to actually be on the field and be able to do this?
Well, to begin, I'm extremely excited because, I have a really good coach, Coach Gentry, who's going to prepare me as well as he possibly can. So I know he's going to give me all the tools and, the moves, to have a good game and good season as well at this new position. Also, like Coach said, a lot of the younger guys stepped up a lot in the spring and in fall camp at the inside linebacker position, and they brought a lot of depth at that position, which allowed me to move to the edge more.
How different is it on the edge? What's the difference between the middle and being on the effective?
Honestly, I wouldn't say it's not too much of a difference because I might have a little bit of experience at that position because my senior year of high school, I played the same position I'm playing now. So, just in terms of a football standpoint, yeah, there's certain keys and different things that you have to look at for sure. But for the most part, it's not much of a difference for me.
You feel like you have to play a little bit more aggressively now, rather than being in the middle where you're almost kind of, looking for that hole to open to attack rather than, right off and you just come screaming off.
Well, no matter what position you're playing in football, you always have to be as aggressive and as physical as you possibly can. But I'll just say that I think it'll allow me to have more plays behind the line of scrimmage just because I'm already at the line of scrimmage to begin with, from probably being about 4 or 5 yards off of it.
How high is the standard that you feel like you guys have to live up to as far as pressuring quarterbacks? Because you guys are one of the top sack teams in the country last year. Do you feel a little obligation to uphold that standard and keep those sack numbers and those pressure numbers high?
Yes, of course. Affecting the quarterback and rushing the passer is probably, I wouldn't want to say the number one thing in football, but it's just really up there just because of how many times teams pass the ball nowadays. So, that standard is always going to be really high for us, whether it's going to be next year or the year before. We just want to keep the same intensity and same energy that we had the previous years.
Garrett Marino returning back on the defensive line. Other than that, it's a lot of new guys, although some of them were here last year in the redshirt. What have you seen from that group? Because obviously they got to replace a guy like Anthony Rush, who's killing it with the Raiders right now. Q, just those guys that were there last year. How has these young guys kind of stepped up into that defensive line?
Yeah, last year the defensive line was probably just as good as I've ever seen before. All of those guys are currently with the NFL team or had a shot with the NFL team. This year, the guys, they're picking off, really, really well. You have Tony Fair, who's really big at the nose tackle position. He clogs up the middle really well. Yeah, obviously Garrett Marino, very good football player as well too. Moultrie, Antonio Moultrie, big but really athletic guy too as well. And that's just from a interior standpoint. And you also have Jordan Smith at the edge, who's about 6'7" too as well. So the guys, I would say I don't want to say the talent is just as much because I don't want to take nothing away from those guys last year because those guys are extremely talented. But from a talent standpoint, those guys are probably just right there too as well.
You feel like having a Jordan Smith out there is almost like having a Garcia Williams, just from the height standpoint, having a guy who's almost 7 foot tall.
Yeah, they're kind of built identically. Jamel is like 6'8", 250, and Jordan's about the same thing. So I'm really excited to see what Jordan can do for us this year. He's really athletic and he's very long. He can bend the edge really well. So I can see a lot of similarities between the two.
So we do have, I'm the only returning starter on the offensive line. However, the guys that are coming up to fill in those roles all have had some kind of game experience. So it's not like it's a whole new group of 4 new guys. As far as motivation goes, playing on the offensive line, it's not the most beautiful position. You're not getting the spotlight. When somebody scores a touchdown, it's the running back or the quarterback or the wide receiver. Nobody really looks at the offensive line. So offensive line, in general, is mostly self-motivated, but the group of guys that got around me, I know how they work. I know that they're committed. I know that we can get the job done. So, motivating them is not an issue.
The perception could be that, with such a loss on the offensive line, y'all might have to take a step back, but it's been a very intense competition at all those positions, throughout spring and into this fall. Do you feel like that competition has just, ramped up that intensity for the group and may have, pushed them further than where, most people might think they already are?
Right, I would agree. There's definitely been a high level of competition, especially with that many spots open and available. I think we have a very competitive offensive line. I think we preach a lot about mentality and being tough physically and mentally. I think we've definitely set a pretty high standard as far as that goes. Competition is always a good thing, and I think the guys that have rose to the top got there for a reason. Coach Owens, our offensive line coach, says every day he's going to play the best 5, no matter if you started last year, which I'm the only starter from last year, but if you have game experience or not, if you're brand new, if you're a freshman, if you can get the job done, you can play.
Lee, what's it like when you go out there in the huddle, first series, first game, you've been through camp, you decided to hit somebody else. Describe for us, if you would, what that adrenaline rush is like, again, that first snap, first game, first series.
Right, you've been beating up on the same defensive lineman for the last 4 weeks in camp, so being able to go out and hit somebody else is always exciting, and that first snap, it's not necessarily a relief, but you're definitely excited to finally be in the season. Camp is a grind, and you're looking forward to it all year. Since January, we've been looking forward to that first game. So it's exciting, and we're looking for a great season this year, and especially with the new guys that have come up that don't have as much experience. I think it's going to be exciting. They might have some butterflies a little bit for that first snap, but I think after that we'll be able to get it under control.
Do you have to calm some guys down in that situation occasionally?
For my own experience, I remember in 2014 I was kind of thrown into the fire, and I know I definitely had some butterflies in my first game, but when you have experienced guys around you, they kind of calm you down, they kind of bring you back to reality, and you realize I'm playing in a college football game right now. A lot of guys I can't say that on this team, but I would say they probably have a little bit of butterflies. You don't really have to calm them down as much because they're excited and they're amped up and ready to go. Right.
Kind of in between. How much do you do a little more of that in this camp when compared to a year ago when you guys have been together for that many games?
Right. I would say no matter how much experience and how much playing time you have with each other, communication is definitely a key to the success of the offensive line. I think a little bit more so this year. Having those new guys in, getting the calls, making sure we're identifying things, picking up blitzes, stuff like that. Being able to trust the guy next to you and understand if you say something, he's going to do it, following what the center says at all times, stuff like that. So I think communication is definitely important, and it's definitely been something we've put a lot of emphasis on coming out of camp.
You've seen about everything a college football player can see. Going back to your first year in 2014, what are your expectations for this team for this year? You guys have set such a high standard, accomplished so much so far above the game. What are your standards for this team?
Right. We set a pretty high standard last year. I don't know if you can get very much better than what we did. You know, obviously we want to win every single game that we come into. That's the mindset going into every week. You know, you never look over an opponent. You never look past anyone. Every week coming up is game week. You know, it's a 1-0 season every week. So, you know, as for an offensive line, our goals this season are to, of course, keep Tyler Johnson protected, you know, blow holes open for Spencer Brown to run through, you know, keep the protection up so we can throw the ball deep for the wide receivers. And we want to be the best offensive line in the conference, honestly. I mean, if that's not your goal, you know, I don't know what you're doing. You know, I'm very confident in our offensive line. I think we have a great group. I think we can achieve all the goals that we set, and I'm excited.
Offensive line, going against Chris Maul, you know, guy it's that fast inside. I know
Right.
he's inside now. How tough is it sometimes for you guys to catch him and find him? Sometimes when you got a guy with that kind of speed inside.
He's very shifty. I mean, he's a great football player. That guy, you know, as far as football IQ goes, he's one of the best. And having him to block every day in fall camp prepares you for the guys you're going to see in the season. But, you know, if you don't have eyes on him at all times, you don't know where he's going to end up. So, you know, and that's not just Chris Mull, that's the entire defense. You know, the guys that we are going against every day in practice are some of the best in the conference. So, you know, being able to go against them every day definitely helps you prepare for the first game and the games to come after that. But, you know, Chris Mull would definitely be a quicker guy that you'd see, you know, as far as our opponents go down the line. They might have bigger guys at linebacker, but, you know, he's shifty and he's going to get to the ball. So it's definitely important being able to block somebody like him.
Is this a faster defense than a year ago?
I would agree. I don't know if it's necessarily faster, you know, position by position than last year, but they have a lot of explosiveness. They have a lot of agility. I mean, every single person on our defense is an athlete. So, you know, I think that's vitally important to have a top defense like we did last year. Had a bunch of great athletes last year, and I think we have a bunch of great guys coming in this year. A lot of freshman guys who are coming in, competing for those spots, and they want to show what they're capable of. So I think that level of competition has made our defense that much better.
Yes, that kind of caught me off guard. That's the first I've heard of it, as he said earlier. So I think we all kind of looked and like, oh wow, that's kind of a big deal. So that's kind of cool to be a captain, because I've never really been a captain in the game before. So it's a pretty big deal. That's sweet.
Anything else for that?
What goes into, you know, those kicking off and stuff like that? You know, you let
Touchback.
Jones coordination, touchback, you know, like
Yeah.
that one to, you know, especially mentioned about the kickoff in the 20s.
Mhm.
Kind of what goes through your mind when you're trying to hit those touchbacks?
Yeah, it's a little different for me. I'm not this 6'4" typical touchback build where I'm like 230 pounds and just swing my leg, and however it hits the ball, it goes pretty far. I mean, I'm kind of a smaller guy. I'm 5'10", 180 soaking wet, so I don't really have a lot of weight behind the ball. The biggest thing for me is just building that technique. So I've worked really hard on getting the most and making the most repeatable, explosive movement I could make. In the game, I kind of just let loose. I don't really think about technique as much. I do my 2 run-ups without a ball. If you ever see me before kickoff, I'll run up there without a ball and try to do the technique there. And then when I get the ball in the tee and the whistle blows, I just let my mind clear and I just swing for the fences. Because, as I said, I'm not the biggest guy. I can't just have a nice, easy swing, get a thud, and let that thing be a touchback. So I'm swinging pretty hard at the ball and just trying to let that thing sail. So hopefully we can repeat what we did last year. It was pretty good.
What was the difference in 17 and 18? You guys are 17 and 18.
Yeah, I think I doubled 17. 17, as I said, it wasn't repeatable. I had the power. I'd have those kicks that would go 75 plus. I'd have those out of the backs, but I'd have a lot of miss hits that would go to like the 5 or the 10. So that was kind of my goal after 17. I was like, well, that kind of ticked me off. So my goal is to get my miss hits to go at least 3 or 4 deep, because you still have a chance at a touchback there. A guy catches it 3 or 4 deep, sees your guys running down the field. There's a good chance he might just take the knee and not deal with all the mess that is kickoff return. So my good hits went just as far, but I just made it a lot more repeatable. I made it to the point where my miss hits were going further, and I just felt a lot more comfortable repeating my steps. It's all repeatability. As I said, I'm not a big guy, so can't rely on the leg too much.
But obviously you've got a big leg, and you can on field goals, you can kick it from deep. What are your personal goals from a field goal standpoint?
I want to improve in my accuracy. I mean, the stats kind of tell the tape. I was kind of a lot less consistent when we get past that 40-yard mark and then the 50-plus mark, kind of in that range. And I had, I think it was 3 or 4 blocks last year, which is absurd. I need to get a little more height. So what I've done this off season is I've kind of worked my way. It's a drill I do, but one of the first kicks I do every session when I'd be training is I'd put myself like 5 yards from the uprights. So the uprights like just right there and right above your head. Just start work on kicking it over. So I've worked on getting a lot more height this year. I've worked hard on that like 40 to 50 range of just being repeatable. As I said, it's kind of like the kickoffs from the year before. I can hit those field goals. They're not power-wise too much of a struggle. It's more the accuracy and the consistency in which I do it. So I've worked really hard on trying to get the exact same hit every time. I've kind of worked it backwards. Looking at a completely technical standpoint, I want to have the exact same foot-to-ball contact every single time. And Kyle Greenwell and Jacob Fuqua have been huge because they've come out with me all this summer. And every time I've been training, they've been training with me. So we've been kind of working that timing. And we've worked to be like a well-oiled machine where first day of camp, we were ready to go getting the same hit. And we know if anything varied, if the kick was going to miss or not. So it's a lot more of a science this year, I'd say. So we worked pretty hard at that.
Nick, you've had a wild college career. You started UAB, and came back. You guys talked about that in the locker room still, about where you were, part of the team, and where you are now, all looking towards the future?
It's kind of looking towards the future at this point. I've been here for a real long time, but I guess kind of a surreal experience of seeing that building go down. You know, a lot of people are just, oh, it's cool, a crane's crushing a building, but for me, that you got to remember, that was a brand new locker room. I came here, we were still in Bartow. You know, we'd walk over to the field for practice. You know, it was like big pain in everyone's butt. Like we'd go over to the weight room, all that. And kind of seeing that thing demolition, it's kind of like a new era at UAB. You know, I remember being so excited. We were getting a locker room there, and it looked like way nicer than what we had at Bartow, those wooden old locker rooms. But we've moved on to this now, and it's even better. But I guess that's kind of the thing that hits me is I've been here so long that they're literally mowing down my brand new locker room that I got when I was here. I was so excited about, like, you know, they take you on recruiting visits and they promise you a bunch of stuff. I was promised that locker room. Now they're getting promised a new stadium and all this other stuff. And to me, it's kind of surreal because I've been here so stinking long that they're tearing down what was promised to me, you know? So it's kind of come full circle, I guess.
You know, you're losing guys who do know about Bartow and do know about do some of these younger guys almost take this for granted a little bit, and you try to remind them of, well, you know, where you guys came from?
I don't want to bad talk anybody. I mean, I understand just as well as anyone the recruiting battle. I mean, they expected to come here to these facilities. I mean, when I was here, it was a different time. I mean, UAB wasn't half the team they were. I mean, we've completely done a 180. I was promised something like this facility, so that's kind of what I was looking forward to. And they're promised a stadium, so they're even looking forward or further forward. And I don't really come down on anyone for that. I mean, it's not their fault. They take it for granted, but it's kind of cool to say, hey, you weren't here when we were practicing on like a beach volleyball court, and we had that crappy locker room over there, and we had to walk from Bartow and all that. So it's kind of good to pull their ear about that, but nothing to harp on too much. This is what they were promised, and this is what they were expecting. So.
Have you ever done that with Bartow again?
Not that locker room. I've been in there a couple times. When we warm up that way, we kick it over the net sometimes and around the net if it doesn't go as planned. So I've worked my way through that locker room. It's kind of weird. You get that same grimy smell it had and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool going back to, well, was kind of cool going back through there. It's gone now. So.
As exciting as it was to watch you go down, was there kind of a bittersweet feeling to it just because, you know, you were able, along the lead, just able to see it from that point to this point?
There's a lot of memories come from that building. I mean, you talk about when they shut the program down. I mean, having that whole parking lot filled with fans, all the way back to the baseball field filled with fans. There's a lot of memories that I have from that locker room. So it was bittersweet seeing it actually fall down. But as I said, it's a new era, so it's kind of a refreshing thing to know that the program's heading in the right direction.